So I'm going to invite Joy up first to speak, and then she's going to speak. And she'll also give it Heather's contribution, who couldn't be here today. And then we have Sharon, and then we have Sarah, myself, and Dick and Kathy. Over to you, Joy.
Okay, I first want to read a poem called The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and feel above me the day-blind stars waiting for their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. So I brought these dahlias. There are 6 of them, and for me they represent the board. And we have the most beautiful board members ever. They are beautiful, and these flowers reflect the style and nature of us on the team. Unique, diverse, very much individuals, but together make a gorgeous display. So thank you, board members. And I just want to follow that with Heather Stefanik. Now, do you have a picture of her jade plant? Ah, yes, okay. Heather has written a beautiful little story that I'll read. This is a jade plant, also known as dollar plant, lucky plant, or money tree. The botanical name is Crassula ovata. It is drought-tolerant, disease-resistant, air-purifying, a sleep aid, and a natural humidity gauge. Its symbolism is good fortune, wealth, friendship, and harmony within the family. We better all get one right away. So Heather says, why is this plant so meaningful to me? Having gone directly from school into a working life, I never attended university, so in 2000 I decided to enroll in a 9-month full-time horticultural program at the University College of the Cariboo in Kamloops. One of our projects was propagation. From the giant jade plant in the horticultural department's greenhouse, I took one of the leaves, put it in soil, and occasionally provided water. When we moved from Kamloops to Salmon Arm in 2016, the plant had grown so large that we had to leave it behind. I stuck another leaf in a small pot, and this is the result after 9 years. So it is my grand plant. For me, it represents my ability to go back to school later in life and learn something new, to persevere with the challenges of being many years older than my classmates, as well as having to work physically in the summer heat, and finally to graduate from the program. I believe it helped me during my time as the chair of Capital's board, and with the other committees on which I serve, namely Sunday services and personnel, to be adaptable and willing to work cooperatively with a variety of personalities. Thank you very much, Sharon.
So I'm a little bit about step up.
So the Zoomers can see.
Okay. Oh, I see. I'm aware of the.
So they can't see it over there.
Come forward.
I can hurry.
Okay. All of that for something small. Some years ago, I had a photo exhibit entitled Lane Flowers. I loved ambling along Vancouver back lanes, happening upon flowers wildly growing, unlike their relatives confined to the discipline of front garden showcases, telephone poles, and roses. As roses drop their petals, they leave behind their magical rose hips. Ripening in late summer through autumn, these precious orbs, high in antioxidants and vitamin C, are known to promote skin health, boost the immune system, and aid in digestion. Rose hips. Roses, a feast for the eyes and for the soul.
Hi, I'm Sarah, for anybody who is new here. And I am going to focus on the Gary oak. So I chose a plant which flowers very subtly in the spring. And so right now it is leathery branches that are full of holes. And I chose it because to me there's two main themes from it. One is interdependence, and one is what Ernie mentioned, resilience. So the holes speak of interdependence because the Gary oak is critical to the Gary oak ecosystem, which is the most endangered land habitat in the province, right here in southeastern Vancouver Island. And Gary oak meadows host more plant species than any other ecosystem of coastal BC. So those meadows with the gnarly, twisted trees are actually a hot spot of biodiversity. They provide critical habitat for more than 100 species of birds, 7 amphibians, 7 reptiles, 33 mammal species, and over 800 insect and mite species. So these little holes are evidence of the job that they're doing. So that interdependence is not just the animals and the plants that are kind of separate. I am part of this whole ecosystem. So Ernie spoke about our resilience, but we are also very dependent on the plant world, the insect world. So that's one of the things that really spoke to me about the Gary oaks. So we are part of nature, and nature is not something separate from us. We are nature. So the second message is, to me, that this is a theme of resilience and hope. So the Gary oak tree has adapted to our warm, dry summers and our wet winters. So it can survive, and many other species may struggle with climate change and adapting to climate change. So it gives me hope to see a native plant like the Gary oak that actually can deal with our drought-ridden summers, which probably are going to get more extreme, and let us have hope that we can survive. And the Gary oak, with all of its holes and its leathery leaves, which I really encourage you next time you're walking in the park, feel the leathery leaves of the Gary oak. So to me, it's a symbol of hope for the future and our place in it. And I think after me was Lee is speaking.
Okay, so I have a slideshow, and Pedro can get that started. And slides are going to whip by pretty quickly, about 6 seconds each. And then I think a new member sent in a slide, so we're going to show that. Let me take the mic and take it to the side. All right, this is better. So I'm not going to necessarily talk about each slide as people can see it, but this is my friend Joy. And I'm going to just focus on 4 types of plants. And to start with, something from my childhood. And the thing that in my childhood represents is the snapdragon. I would take the flower heads and pinch them between my 2 fingers for the dragon's mouth to open. And it really represents that mystical wonderment that children have with both fairy tales and the environment for me, because I played outside a lot of times in my life. And the next plant that means quite a bit to me is is stone crop. About every 5 seconds each, yeah. And the stone crop, I remember from my young adult times when I worked in Banff Park and did a lot of hiking. And stone crop grows out of the cracks of crops in the high mountains. However, here in the coast, it's ground cover, amazingly enough. And the next slide for me is, let's see if I'm just going to pull this up on my phone to make sure I got this right, is the arbutus tree. Yeah, there's an arbutus. Maybe these are out of sync a bit, but that's okay. And so the arbutus, don't worry about it. The arbutus is at this time of my life symbolizes coming to Victoria, to Vancouver Island. And for some reason, I attach it to this, my search for what does spirituality mean to me. The silver bark of the arbutus peels off to become, oh, slow down. It's okay, they don't have to be in order, Pedro. Yeah, just stay there. Stay there and go slowly now. Yeah, just every few seconds. But regardless of what I say, you'll see these trees. You're reading. I want you to focus on what's there and not so much what I'm saying. But the silver bark peels off to reveal a beautifully orange, red, silvery, reflective color underneath. And somehow for this represents to me spirituality. And in the last number of years, I've been traveling in the Baja Peninsula in Mexico, and also through BC and Alberta. And I find cactuses are really helping to represent this sort of a time in life when I've come to call myself an old woman, traveling old woman. The Cardone cactus lives to 500 years old, which is amazingly old for a tree. But some of them in the Valley of the Giants lives to be 1,000 years old, which is pretty incredible because it's double the age. But there's also a very old tree, a tree that lives to great age on the ridges of high ridges and mountains, right up at the tree line. And you see one photo of a ridge, which is in Canada. But if you go a little farther south to Oregon and California, there's a little pine tree that lives to over 4,000 years old, which is really an incredible age because, you know, that's most of when writing and human history that we know as our current culture has evolved from was at that point in time. And this ridge is at the Kicking Horse Resort in Golden, BC. And I walk this ridge right up to the top of that mountain peak there, right on the edge. And at one point you go up this stairway, metal stairway called the Stairway to Heaven. And it really feels like that up there. And my last thing that I'm going to talk about is something that's really not quite a plant, and maybe not quite an animal, and lives in between. It's a single-celled organism called a slime mold. And the incredible thing about slime molds, the single-celled organism, that when it's used up its food source or it becomes threatened, it comes together to have a body, to live together so it can reproduce. And cells form some cells form the stem, and other cells go up it to flower and fruit, and so it can send out spores and continue to live. And this is the fruiting body of it. And the last slide that's going to be in this series is a gift from my friend the last time that I drove back from Baja. It stayed with me the whole trip there on my dashboard. Now I think we have one more slide after this of a new member, Zora's plant, and it's a miracle plant. So thank you so much, Zora. Do you want to stand up and so we can see who you are and introduce yourself?
Sure, I'll just tell you about this plant if I can. I'm not a natural plant empath. I have to kind of try hard. I'm more an air sign. I was walking in here today and I saw this feather right in the parking lot, so we put some air. And I noticed there was fire there, but the fire went out. So this is on my balcony. And every year I buy a plant, and I am Home Depot or whatever, and I put it in there and it grows, and then it dies during the winter, and next year I buy a new one. So this plant, last winter, even though it's the coldest winter I remember since I moved here 10 years ago, this plant, but in different form, lived the whole winter. It was December 1st, it was still blooming, those purple flowers, still leaves. I said, are you gonna make it to Christmas? It made it to Christmas, it made it to January, and then finally it slowed down. But it bloomed, there was ice and snow everywhere, and this plant is crazy blooming, and it has delicate little leaves and flowers, and they didn't die and fall off till about February. So then it comes roaring back to life this past April, but then it gets a terrible disease, I think some kind of powdery mildew, and all the leaves crust up and powder up, and I thought, okay, the only way this plant's gonna live is if I cut it right back. So I cut it right back to about 1.5 inches of just the woody stems, and then I thought, well, if it wants to come back, it will, and I watered it, and then during the recent heat wave time, I suddenly look and there's a tiny little green thing coming out of one of the sticks, and then my son's going off on a big trip, I'm getting ready, and I look a week later and it's got this floppy green leaf stem, and I thought I better prop this up, so I got some chopsticks, because it had no structure, because it all come out of one thing. So then I just kept putting chopsticks, and this is less than a month later, and it's flowering again. So, you know, to me, someone said the regenerative power of nature. This is just a humble house plant, and it just comes.
So wonderful. More stories of resistance. So we don't get too far over time. Dick has got something to add to end us off here before we go into our prelude.
Sure, I have a brief something. I had intended to say something about garlic, because I planted garlic last fall, and I planted 100 cloves. And then, of course, they came up, the plants were thriving, and then we went away for a month. And I did, I cut off the scapes and made pesto and things. And my intent, I came back, had to harvest it right away. It was a bit dry, but I still have quite a lot of garlic, which I'm happy to share. And as I was thinking of preparing the garlic to bring, which would have involved, cleaning off some of the dirt from the outside, a dear friend dropped by to bring some things, including this massive bunch of dahlias. And I encourage as many dahlias as there are for anybody who wants one to take one. But back to garlic. There is this lovely song that I want to share. It does talk kind of about the cycle of garlic. It'll be short. It goes like this. Fiery teeth of the dragon, we plant when the veil is thin to dream through the winter. And in the spring may garlic rise again. Woo!
And it's around in 4 parts. We might have to do that sometime. I wanted to bring a view from underneath an arbutus tree on Thursdays when we do our outside singing group. This is where we move to sing under the arbutus, to sing our first song of the afternoon. And it's lovely. It shelters us from the harsh sun. It keeps some of our sound in. It's a wonderful place to be. It's on the shore there by West Bay. So thank you for that. We'll go on. No, meditation. That's right. Next, we'll take a brief moment for meditation with music from Attila.